Hello, my friend, and welcome. I am so glad that our paths have crossed today, right here in this moment. Have you ever felt like you've been dealt a bad hand, that the rules of the game we call life suddenly changed on you and no one bothered to send you the memo? If you have ever cried out, "That's not fair," and wondered where God is in the middle of that mess, I want to encourage you to stay with me for the next few minutes, because we are going to talk about the single most important move you can make when life simply isn't fair. Let's begin with a cry from an ancient heart that I'm certain will sound familiar to some of you listening today. The prophet Habakkuk, a man of God, looked at the world around him and essentially threw his hands up in the air, asking God a question we've all asked. He says in Habakkuk chapter 1 verse 2, "O Lord, how long shall I cry, and you will not hear?" It's a raw, honest question from a man who felt overlooked, unheard, and stranded in a world that had gone sideways. That feeling is a bitter pill to swallow, isn't it? The sting of betrayal from a friend, the shock of a diagnosis that comes out of nowhere, the frustration of being passed over for a promotion you poured your soul into earning. It's the deep, gut-wrenching ache that comes when you play by the rules but still lose the game, and you watch others who cut corners seem to sail by without a care. That feeling of injustice can curdle our spirit, turning hope into cynicism and trust into a wall of doubt. Frankly, it can make you want to quit, to just throw in the towel on faith, on people, on everything. We see the cheater get ahead, the liar get believed, and the manipulator get their way, and we're left holding the bag of integrity that suddenly feels awfully empty. And in those quiet, desperate moments, a dangerous whisper can creep into our souls, asking, does God even see what's happening? And if he does he even care? But what if our response, our next move, is the very thing that determines whether the unfairness defines us or refines us? Let's wade into these deep waters together and acknowledge a foundational truth. Our world is fractured by sin, and because of that, unfairness is woven into its very fabric. From the very beginning, in the garden, a perfect world was shattered by a wrong choice, and we have been living in the aftershocks ever since. So when we encounter injustice, we are not experiencing some strange anomaly. We are experiencing the painful, predictable brokenness of a fallen world. God never promises us a life free from the splinters of this brokenness. In fact, His Word prepares us for it. Jesus himself, the only truly perfect person to ever walk this earth, received the most unfair treatment in the history of the universe. So if you're feeling the sting of injustice today, know this: you are in good company, and your feeling is not foreign to the heart of God, who watched His own Son endure the ultimate inequity. Now, when that unfair moment hits, we have a choice, and often our first instinct is to make the wrong move. One of the most common wrong moves is the path of retaliation, the desire to get even and make them pay. Another is to sink into the quicksand of bitterness, allowing resentment to take root and poison every corner of our lives until we can think of little else. Finally, there's the subtle but deadly trap of embracing a victim mentality, where we build our identity on the wrong that was done to us and give it permanent power over our present and our future. Let's be honest with one another. These responses feel justified in the moment, don't they? The desire for vengeance feels like a desire for justice. The bitterness feels like a shield to protect our wounded heart. And the victim narrative feels like the simple truth. But these paths, my friend, lead only to a prison of our own making, a place where the person who wronged us continues to control us long after the offense is over. We think we are holding them captive with our anger, but we are the ones who have lost our freedom. So what then is the right move? What does a person of faith do when the floor gives out beneath them? Let me tell you a story you know well, but I want you to hear it with fresh ears today, through this lens of unfairness. Think of Joseph, a young man with a vibrant future, his father's favorite, full of God-given dreams. Life was good. until one day it became brutally, shockingly unfair when his own brothers, simmering with jealousy, threw him into a pit and sold him into slavery. Imagine Joseph in that moment, stripped of his beautiful coat, bound like an animal, and sold to foreign travelers. Every hope, every dream was seemingly extinguished in an instant by the very people who should have protected him. If anyone had a right to become bitter, to plot revenge, to spend the rest of his life nursing a grudge and bemoaning his victimhood, it was Joseph. He was a slave in Egypt, a foreign land, with no one to plead his case. Then, just when things seemed to be turning around in Potiphar's house, where his integrity earned him great responsibility, life sucker punched him again. He was falsely accused of a heinous crime by Potiphar's wife, a woman whose advances he had righteously resisted. He made the right choice, the godly choice, and for his reward, he was thrown into a dark, forgotten prison, a place from which few ever emerged. The unfairness is staggering. It's almost suffocating to even think about. He spent years in that dungeon, forgotten even by the cupbearer, whose dream he interpreted and whose freedom he predicted. Talk about unfair. He helps someone get out of the pit, and that very person forgets him the moment they are restored to their comfortable life. This wasn't just a bad day or a tough week. This was more than a decade of his young life stolen by jealousy, lies, and neglect. So what was Joseph's move? The Bible doesn't record a single word of complaint, not a whisper of bitterness or a vow of revenge. Instead, we see him consistently choosing to trust God right where he was, to do the next right thing, whether it was managing a household or interpreting dreams in a dungeon. His focus was not on his circumstances, which were deplorable, but on the character of his God, whom he knew to be sovereign and good. This is the critical pivot, the move that changes everything. Joseph's move was to lift his eyes from the horizontal, from the people and problems that surrounded him, and to fix them on the vertical, on the God who was still reigning over it all. He believed that even in a pit, even in a prison, even when forgotten by men, he was not forgotten by God. And because of that unwavering trust, God was able to position him through all that pain and injustice for a role he never could have imagined. When he finally comes face to face with his brothers years later, they are trembling with fear, expecting the retribution they so richly deserve. And here we see the culmination of Joseph's life-altering move. He looks at these men who ruined his life and says in Genesis chapter 50, verse 20, "But as for you, you meant evil against me, but God meant it for good, in order to bring it about as it is this day, to save many people alive." Do you see the profound spiritual insight here? Joseph didn't deny the evil, he acknowledged their wicked intent head on. But he refused to let their evil have the final say. Instead, he overlaid it with a greater, more powerful reality, God's sovereign purpose. He made the crucial distinction between the human intention and the divine intention, and he chose to live in the reality of God's redemptive plan. That, my friend, is your move. It is to look at the unfair situation square in the face and say, I see the evil that was intended here, I feel the pain of this injustice, but I choose to believe in a God who is bigger than this moment. It's the conscious, deliberate act of handing the scales of justice back to God and trusting Him to be the judge while you get on with the business of being faithful right where you are. It's the refusal to let what someone else meant for evil define the rest of your story, because you serve a God who specializes in meaning things for good. This isn't a call to spiritual denial or a suggestion to pretend that you're not hurting. The pain is real and you must grieve it, but it is a call to not get stuck in that pain, to refuse to build a monument to your misery. It's an invitation to believe with all your heart the promise found in Romans chapter 8, verse 28. And we know that all things work together for good to those who love God, to those who are the called according to His purpose. All things, Not just the good things, but the painful, the confusing, and yes, even the brutally unfair things. God's perspective is so much higher than ours, like looking at a grand tapestry from the front instead of the back. From our vantage point on the floor, all we see is a chaotic mess of tangled threads, knots, and frayed ends. It looks ugly and makes no sense. But from God's perspective, He sees the breathtaking image that He is masterfully weaving, a picture where every single thread, even the dark and painful ones, has a crucial purpose in the final design. Your unfair situation is a dark thread, to be sure, but God is using it to create a depth and a beauty in your life's tapestry that would be impossible without it. So how do we begin to make this move, to shift our perspective from the tangled mess on the floor to the masterpiece in the making? I want to invite you to make a change, not tomorrow, but right now, in the quietness of your own heart. It's a transformation that begins with a simple yet profound act of surrender. It's the moment you stop shaking your fist at the heavens and instead open your hands in trust. It's choosing to believe that God's goodness is not contingent on your circumstances, but that your circumstances are subject to His goodness. This is not a one-time decision, but a daily, sometimes hourly choice. It's the choice to forgive when every fiber of your being wants to hold a grudge. It's the choice to look for God's hand at work when all you can see is evidence of His absence. It's the choice to define your life not by what has happened to you, but by who you are in Christ, chosen, redeemed, and held securely in the hands of a sovereign Father. This transformation frees you. It releases you from the burden of being your own defender, your own avenger, and your own judge. You can let it go because you have placed your case, your pain, and your future into the hands of the only one who is perfectly just, perfectly wise, and perfectly good. The one who wronged you no longer gets to live rent-free in your head because you have evicted them and given that space back to the Prince of Peace. Now let's just be still for a moment. I want you to close your eyes if you feel comfortable. Take a slow, deep breath and let the noise of the world fade away. In this quiet space, I want you to bring to mind that situation, that person, that circumstance that feels so deeply unfair. Don't run from the feeling. Acknowledge the hurt, the anger, the confusion. Now picture yourself taking that entire messy, painful situation and placing it into the strong, capable hands of God. See yourself releasing your grip on it, letting go of your need to understand it, to fix it, or to avenge it. As you release it, I want you to whisper this truth to your own soul. God, you meant it for good. Repeat it again, even if it feels difficult to believe. God, you meant it for good. Feel the weight lifting from your shoulders as you entrust the outcome to Him. Ask Him to show you the first step of faith He wants you to take, not out of the situation, but through it. Maybe it's an act of kindness towards someone who doesn't deserve it, a prayer for the one who hurt you, or simply the act of getting out of bed tomorrow and choosing trust over despair. Now, as we prepare to close, I want to give you a very practical next step, a call to action. Take out a piece of paper or open a new note on your phone. At the top, write down the unfair situation, then draw a line down the middle of the page. On the left side, I want you to write down everything the enemy or another person meant for evil in that situation. The pain, the loss, the betrayal. Then on the right side of the page, I want you to prayerfully ask God to show you what He is meaning for good. It might be things like new compassion, deeper faith, unexpected strength, a refined character, or a new direction for your life. You may only be able to write one or two things today, and that's okay. But keep that paper and add to it as God reveals more of His redemptive work to you over time. And if you feel led, I encourage you to share your story in the comments below, not for sympathy, but as a testimony to God's faithfulness, because your story of overcoming could be the very thing someone else needs to hear to find hope today. My dear friend, life will be unfair. That is a guarantee. But your response is your choice. And that choice can lead you into a deeper, more intimate, and more powerful relationship with the God who holds all things together. He sees you, He loves you, and He is working all things for your ultimate good and His eternal glory. May the God of all comfort, who comforts us in all our tribulation, meet you in your place of pain today. May He give you the grace to release what you cannot control and the faith to trust His sovereign hand. And may you, like Joseph, one day be able to look back on this season and see with clarity how the very thing that was meant to destroy you became the tool God used to deliver you.